The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hello and welcome to Fearless, Fabulous You. I'm Melanie Young, and this is my first show live for 2026. And of course, we're going to be talking about something that is always top of mind in early 2026 and every January: what to eat and how to get healthy and how to have a better year and life ahead. And of course, this week, there's been a lot of breaking news because the U.S. Dietary Guidelines, which are updated every 5 years, were released. It has the food and nutrition and health world buzzing. Naturally, ironically, it came out the same weekend that here in New Orleans, Mardi Gras king cakes came out, and everybody is in a whipped frenzy eating king cakes. So we've got like a conundrum for me because it's about health and wellness and eating well, but being part of the party here in New Orleans. But today we're going to focus on the dietary guidelines and what they mean to you and why are they important. And joining me is one of my favorite registered dietitians and award-winning culinary journalists who actually has deciphered other U.S. dietary guidelines with me on prior shows here on Fearless, Fabulous You. We're talking about Carolyn O'Neil, who is really one of the first nutrition broadcast journalists in this country when she worked at CNN. She has written many books, lectures widely. She's appeared on many TV shows, and you can hear her and watch her on her own podcast, Watch What You Eat, on the Spoon Network. And she lectures widely. In fact, she's just back from Las Vegas where she talked to tech titans about food tech. So I'm so excited to have her join me, my good friend, and really one of the top culinary nutrition journalists and registered dietitians in this country, Carolyn O'Neil. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie, so much for that beautiful introduction. Wow. Talk about energy in the room. I feel motivated now.
Well, for me, it must have been that Emerald Lagasse banana cream pie cream cake slice I had before I got on the show. Sure, hi. But we're here to talk about healthy eating because let's face it, Carolyn, America has a weight problem. According to statistics, more than 70% of American adults are overweight and obese, and most of them live here in Louisiana. Sorry. Nearly 90% of healthcare spending goes to treating people who have chronic disease, and we cannot afford to be sick because healthcare costs are rising, health insurance is rising. The cost of getting sick, it's not great. And so one of the great solutions is to eat better, move well, reduce stress, and maintain a healthy, balanced lifestyle, which we're going to discuss today, starting with the U.S. Dietary Guidelines. What are they for anyone who doesn't get what they are?
Well, as you mentioned, every 5 years or so, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans come out. And essentially what they are, they're dietary guidelines telling you what to eat for Americans based on current science of the moment, current science of the time. Like, let's say 5 years ago, what didn't we know that we know now about how consuming protein is affecting our health, saturated fats, what should people do for infants and children and teens and aging Americans? I mean, it is incredible how much research goes into creating an update for the U.S. Dietary Guidelines, but therein lies the rub, Melanie, because this time around, things were done a little differently. The original committee that did all the work, if you will, for the last 5 or more years, their stuff was not just ignored, a lot of it was scrubbed in favor of the new administration's dietary guidelines that hit the news just like a week ago in January.
So it's interesting because there's been a lot of chewing and digesting of these guidelines and grumbling and grousing and a lot of issues. And are they politicized? Are they science-based? They're supposed to be science-based according to realfood.gov, which I have up on the screen. But it's really interesting because and these are for 2025, 2030, which really hit me, the 2030 part. But animal fat and protein, and especially animal fats and saturated, full fat dairy suddenly rose up in the food chain where they had been lower down.
And, before we get into that, and we have so much to talk about it, Melanie, and,
Yes.
and thank you for structuring this, because we're going to talk about what's good. We're going to talk about maybe what we're concerned about. But just to let you know, during the Trump administration, there's been a lot of talk about Make America Healthy Again, or the MAHA movement. And recommendations were a report came out, I don't know, in fall of 2025. Now, these are just recommendations. These are suggestions. There was a lot of focus on, red dyes and getting the dyes out of food and all things like that. These are recommendations. However, the U.S. Dietary Guidelines, just to kind of point out a big difference here, this is policy. And policy at a federal level affects what the good people who work in school nutrition have to do to feed our kids in schools, the SNAP program, we used to call that food stamps, food assistance programs, and other government food programs. They have to oh my goodness, now this is policy. And getting back to what you were talking about, that means since the new dietary pyramid, well, anyway, let me just say, the pyramid is back. It's upside down. And I'm just going to hold up a little graphic for those of you who do.
Yeah. And
on
Juan, you can put it up. It says New U.S. Dietary. You'll pop that.
There you go. And, my first reaction, Melanie, was, oh my gosh, the pyramid's upside down and it looks like everything's going down the drain. And I was like, all the good nutrition information is going down the drain, because what caught our eyes as registered dietitians is, we want people to eat happy and healthy. At the very top, you see there's a big old steak. It looks like a porterhouse. It's got the bone in, looks like a bone-in porterhouse. There's, a big chunk of cheese, looks like a giant chicken. There's ground beef. There's, this is like in the protein zone on the upper left, I guess you'd call it, of the pyramid, upside down pyramid, or the funnel. And you get a little piece of salmon, you got an egg, looks like you get 2 shrimp there, big thing of butter. Then over on the vegetable side, you see broccoli, I don't know, and it's up. You know what I do like? I have to point out, I do like that they show frozen peas and canned green beans.
I see Green Giant in there.
I don't think it's a brand, but the point is, I like that, and this has to do with affordability and being able to follow dietary guidelines.
Right.
It's good to know that there are choices that are being encouraged in the produce world that are beyond just fresh, because a lot of people think, oh, I have to buy fresh. No, you can get frozen. I mean, I'm not talking about the broccoli, the frozen broccoli and the cheese sauce. Okay, might be better just get the regular frozen broccoli and then add a little bit of butter, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of, whatever you want on there. And also canned veg. We know canned beans are good for us. These are canned green beans, I think, in the graphic. But again, looking for those sodium levels, read that label with the with the fruit, look at the added sugars in those canned goods. But as a dietitian, I like that. That might be one of the only things I like is that they're showing. But you know what? There's a lot of what am I saying? Conflicting messages going on here, because you referred to it. Okay, so let's get back to the big old steak there. So they're telling Americans, let them eat steak. Okay. What is this, like their Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake moment at a time when groceries have never been more expensive? Certainly beef has never been more expensive. And they're saying, let them eat steak. And way down at the bottom of the funnel, demoted to the bottom of the pyramid, is whole. You see, there's whole grains, and then it shows bread, and it shows a bowl. I don't know what they got going on down there, but
oatmeal.
And there, and also there's a line, and we've never really had a line. Essentially, at the bottom, almost it's like Christopher Columbus, or before him, proving that the world was round. beyond this edge, there be dragons. So why there's a line there to say, don't go to the grain area. So they've really kind of, I don't want to say demonized, but demoted the nutritional value of grain foods. And that would be everything from, of course, wheat, of course, your pastas, of course, your breads, and many, many other grains. And that's not what we see, for instance, in the Mediterranean. So again, a lot of conflicting things. I'm going to say one more thing about the big old steak, the butter. And as you know, beef tallow is also listed. If you go beyond this graphic and you dig into the belly of the beast, essentially, and read their recommendations, it also lists beef tallow as one of the choices. However, the saturated fat recommendation has not changed.
Right.
Before, it was for good health, make sure that the saturated fats are only up to 10% of your total calories. You see what I mean? However, here it looks like they're pushing you to eat the steak, the butter, the beef tallow. And I think if you had a steak, had your French fries in the beef tallow and maybe some butter on your broccoli or butter on your roll at the steakhouse, you'd be way over 10% of total calories. So that makes it hard for people to say, like, what's a girl to do? What are we supposed to do?
Well, the thing is, the pyramid and what actually is written in the guidelines, what they say is prioritize protein foods at every meal, 1.2 to 1.6 grams per protein per kilogram per body weight. The good thing is the first line of the guidelines say eat the right amount of food for you, because overeating is probably one of the worst problems in the country versus not what you eat, but how you eat. But it makes sense, but nobody's going to, you and I read the guidelines, but everybody else is going to look at this somewhat misleading pyramid. But it does say, eat sensible protein and consume a variety of amounts. Okay. Not just that big steak.
Right.
And
Right.
swap how you cook it.
Well, what's missing, I think, until you really dig in, are the amounts of things to eat and how often. Okay, that's what people want to know. How many pieces of bread can I have? Is it a half a cup of this? Is it a 3-ounce serving of steak? Is it, is that cooked or uncooked? There's so many nuances. And back to the protein, and we know over the last couple of years, and certainly raging still today, is protein is the darling nutrient of the day. Every single food product you see in the supermarket is touting protein. And I am not kidding you, Melanie. I went to a food and wine event, and there was a booth there where it was a new product, and it was a vodka protein water. Okay.
Oh God.
That's
crazy.
So everybody knows that the consumer is clamoring for protein. So they're just, if there was protein in there to begin with, it's going right on that front of the pack to brag about how much protein's in there. Or if it never had protein before, like the vodka protein water, they're going for it. And just, I think, you know what? P.T. Barnum said, there's a fool born every day or whatever it is. Be careful. I mean, buyer beware, even in the protein world. So back to the amount that you just mentioned, people said, oh, now the new dietary guidelines are telling us to eat way more protein. Not really. That 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And you could do the math if they did it for math for we don't use kilograms necessarily in this country, but to pounds. It's really not huge amounts of protein. Like you see these carnivore guys, influencers, eating like ridiculous amounts. But one thing you did mention, Melanie, which is important, it always has been, is to spread out that protein throughout the day. Some at breakfast, some at lunch, some in a snack, some at dinner, obviously, rather than a giant steak that you see in the new pyramid.
And how you prepare it, again, because, the oils you cook it in and other things. The other thing is, there was a whole thing on this is full fat versus low fat and incorporate healthy fat. So I got it, but my husband, David, said, what's full fat? Why full fat? That was his question.
And are you referring to dairy? So this really affects the dairy folks. So I think we've known for a long time that this gets us back to saturated fats. Okay. What are saturated fats? Well, first of all, let's talk about fat. Let's chew the fat here, Melanie. Um, Olive oil, okay, and avocado, they are good sources of what are called the unsaturated
Mhm.
fats. Now, all the saturation thing we're talking about here, that's just their chemical composition. Okay, I know I said chemical, but not right. So monounsaturated fats, and they're associated with actually reducing our risk of heart disease, reducing our bad cholesterol, okay. Then the other family of fats are the polyunsaturated fats,
Mhm.
and that would be things like canola oil, vegetable oils, and they have maybe more omega-6 fats. The monos are omega-3, which are more healthful. You actually also find them in salmon. I know that's not a vegetable, but that's where you'll find the good fats
Mhm.
there. And then the third in the trio, the terrific trio of fats, is saturated fats. And the
Mhm.
saturated fats that we find in beef, butter, full fat dairy, as David was asking about. So your whole milk is going to have more saturated fat, obviously, than a
This whole
1%.
corner of the pyramid, the upper left, right, left-hand corner of the pyramid.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna get to the full fat thing, and of course, yogurt,
Mhm.
you can, of course, full fat yogurts are
Mhm.
2% or 4%. So many choices. And the other place that saturated fats come from are, actually from the vegetable kingdom, and that would be in your coconut oil, palm kernel
Mhm.
oil, and those are associated with increasing blood cholesterol levels. Saturated fats are associated with increasing our risk of cardiovascular disease, and that is why they are limited to 10%
Mhm.
of total calories. Now, who
Yeah.
cares about heart disease? What organization? The
The American
American
Heart
Heart
Association.
Association. So they immediately came out with a statement, and they were like, "Okay, wait, no," and because you're also there's not much of talk about sodium in the new dietary guidelines either. So American
None.
Heart came out and said, "Hey, just quick reminder, right now, the current state of science is that if you limit your intake of saturated fats and, keep an eye on the sodium, you will lower your risk of cardiovascular disease." And that includes everything from, high cholesterol that causes heart attacks to hypertension
Risk of
related to
stroke.
stroke, and
Mhm.
all the whole family of things that, we've done a great job at reducing over the last several decades. So they don't want to lose ground, the American Heart Association.
Mhm.
But meanwhile, back to the new pyramid, that team, uh, there's also a line in some of their verbiage that says we need more research on
Mhm.
how saturated fats and fats affect our health. Of course we do, because even as a young dietitian, Melanie, I worked with a researcher called Dr. Scott Grundy. He was in San Diego at the time where I was in training, but then he went to Texas. He's really famous in the food and health world when it goes to fats. And he was one of the ones who looked at the fatty acids to see, which ones were the culprits here, Like we know there's different amino acids in protein, well, there's different fatty acids, even within the saturated fat world. So stearic acid, which is one of them, in chocolate and in beef, has actually kind of a neutral effect on our blood cholesterol. Then there's others that increase it, but every food is a combo. You're gonna
Mhm.
have a combo, just like you eat a piece of protein like chicken or steak or whatever, there's gonna be a bunch of different amino acids in there. There'll be different saturated fats. So they call out and they say, "Oh, we need more research, but in the meantime, eat a bunch of steak?" I don't think so.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting, Carolyn, when we did this show a couple of dietary guidelines ago, the big topic was that eggs kind of got a pass. The dietary cholesterol, which, everybody's like, eat fewer eggs. And suddenly that was flipped, another flip. And the whole topic of cholesterol was kind of changed and people were still confused. The guidelines here just say, when cooking with added fats to meals, prioritize oils with essential fatty acids such as olive oil. Of course, we all know you can't cook
But
with
you know
olive
what's
oil all
crazy
the
about that?
time.
It's really poorly written. I think it's
Yeah.
poorly written because, essential all fatty acids are essential, by the
Right.
way. You know what I mean? At
Mhm.
some point, but maybe in
Mhm.
different amounts. So what they were it sounds like they were glomming together was, I don't know, the fatty acids like your monounsaturated fats that
Yeah.
anyway, just wanted to say that. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Well, no, it's there isn't in that section a little more concrete examples either. The only one they really talk about is in the oil section is olive oil, which we all know you can't necessarily cook with olive oil. And so there's smoke point issues when you're cooking, etc. But it does say at the end, more high quality research is needed. And I was on the American Heart Association site looking at, fat, and more research is needed. So let's just go before we take the period ground. At the very bottom is whole grains. It's interesting, it's at the very bottom because it says here, prioritize fiber-rich whole grains, which is where the pyramid in the text is a little different. Significantly reduce this consumption of highly processed refined carbohydrates, i.e. white bread, ready-to-eat packages, but have about 2 to 4 servings of whole grains per day, adjusting as needed. So it's a little better in the text than in where it
but
is.
also they decrease the number of servings. And let me just give a shout out to refined grains. Let me refine that message about refined grains. Now, we all know when you take that, the wheat, the wheat kernel thingy, and you take the bran off, obviously that's where the fiber is. And so our whole grains, we're getting that fiber because it's, that's why brown rice is brown, or whole grain things made with wheat or brown because it still has the bran on there.
Right.
When you strip it away, decades and decades ago, there was, of course, a public health nutrition movement to add some of the missing nutrients back, not just fiber. So actually refined grains are enriched. They are enriched with some of the nutrients that were essentially stripped away because people like white bread. They like white pasta. They like the texture of it. And by the way, we've never said, don't eat those. We've said, make half your grains whole. Okay. So I envision a sandwich where you got a piece of whole wheat bread and then the white bread at the bottom. Okay. You're good. You're good to go. Or it's a blend, a rice blend of the white rice with the brown rice. You're good to go. Or maybe it's white rice today with your jambalaya. It's brown rice with some sort of Asian stir fried the next day. Doesn't have to be in the same meal. Doesn't have to be in the same sandwich. But back to refined grains, they actually, research has shown that they help fill in really important nutrient gaps, and I'll call them the 3 Fs. That would be, let's say, folic acid. And folate is a B vitamin, which is so important to prevent neural tube defects. And you can't just start consuming it when you become pregnant, because you might not know you're pregnant for several weeks. It's something to keep in your body at a good level. Folate, which is found in lots of things. It's actually found in vegetables, orange juice, that kind of a thing, but in refined grains. And the other one is iron. The reason that's F because its symbol is Fe. And iron and magnesium and other B vitamins. So anyway, I'm just saying that don't feel bad about choosing a refined grain. There's good nutrition in there, but make sure you're also enjoying some whole grains.
I think that's a really great point. And magnesium is hard to source. It's one of the harder ones to source in your diet. So what are some examples of where you can get your magnesium other than you just talked about the grains?
Well, magnesium, I haven't memorized everything but I think it's in like green leafy vegetables. Okay.
So all the PR pictures I'm getting are like faux.
And it's also I think it's in beef too, I mean, these, back to the protein thing. Okay. There's the macronutrients. This is like little nutrition 101. It's just fun. You got your protein, fat, and carbs. Those are your macronutrients. Okay. And then within those foods are all of the different vitamins and minerals, and there are so many. And, we only just discovered some of the vitamins at the turn of the 19th century into 1900s, right? I mean, this nutrition is a relatively new science. So my concern about protein, I feel like it's been sucking all the oxygen out of the room for all the other nutrients. You know what I mean? It's a bully. I think protein has become a bully. And we need to also understand that, your body actually can't use the protein you're consuming without some carbs. They work together.
Yeah.
And carbs work better in our body if you're also having a little protein with the meal to help prevent spikes in blood glucose. Okay. Same with fat. Fat helps with the absorption, who knew, of some of the vitamins and minerals in fruits and vegetables. So, end of the day, I've always said, after reporting on nutrition for decades at CNN and elsewhere, the more you know, the more you can eat.
Yeah.
It's not about demonizing. It is about finding your deliciousness. And if there are splurge foods that are high in sodium, added sugars,
Mhm.
saturated fat that you love, use them as an accessory,
Yeah.
as a foundation. Kind of, I know we're both into fashion, Melanie. I think of
Yes.
that little black dress. You don't want too many accessories, to kinda,
Mhm.
like, junk up the look like Coco Chanel, get dressed and then take one accessory away.
Right.
Think of those splurge ingredients and foods as accessories.
Right. And not main courses. And, the guidelines really emphasize minimizing, reducing, ultra processed foods, which really are the bane of our existence in terms of pushing obesity. That's added sugars, chemicals, added sodium. And there is at the end of the guidelines, the added sugars, explaining what they are, where they're everywhere. Sodium is everywhere. You've got to read your labels. And whenever possible, prepare homemade foods if you're cooking at home.
Yeah, but I don't know how people are cooking. Okay,
I
this
know.
I have always been a champion of the restaurant world, the hospitality world, and
Yeah.
when I see simple advice like, "Shop the perimeter of the store," I'm like, "That's where the beer and the bakery is, okay?"
That's
Or,
true.
"Avoid dining out and cook more at home." I'm like, "I don't know what they're making." And
Yeah.
actually, restaurants, I think, were included in the new dietary guidelines as a shout out to say, because the National Restaurant
Yeah.
Association, said like, "Oh, there's a lot of great choices now," and we do know that. But
Mhm.
back to you mentioned the word chemicals. There are chemicals. I've seen a lot of influencers saying, "How can we eat this? This has an ingredient that I can also find, in the industrial solvent aisle at Home Depot." These folks do not know what they're talking about, okay? That's like saying, "Oh, I added a little pinch of salt to my food, but then I saw that it was used on the roadways to melt ice." Okay, it's like, yeah, even okay, be careful what you're criticizing until you know a
Yeah.
little bit more, the more you know. And back to the synthetic food dyes, which of course, the Dietary Guides from America mentioned, certainly MAHA, Make America Healthy Again.
Mhm.
The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has launched something which is called Nutrition Facts. And all of you listening, if you just go to eatright.org,
Mhm.
you will find, man, they're up to the minute helping us discern some of these things. And I just thought this would be interesting for our listeners today. The Academy, in their nutrition fact check, says about synthetic food dyes, research suggests a small subset of children may be sensitive to synthetic food dyes. However, findings are inconsistent and additional research is needed to better understand relationship with diet, food additives, and behavior. So just by taking the red dye number 3 or red dye number 40 out of your candies isn't necessarily going to improve your entire diet.
It's interesting that they bring that up, and in the guidelines, there's a big section on infancy and early childhood nutrition.
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
and they changed the sugar thing, added sugars. It used to be first it was underage 2, don't give added
yeah,
sugars, then I think it was 6, and now it's like under 10. This is not gonna be a happy Halloween this year, okay? I think
that's
parents and
interesting.
kids and
That's
kids are
interesting.
smart. We know kids are smart. Parents and kids need to know that candies, foods with added sugars do not need to be banned. We
Mhm.
need to teach people how to eat them, how to consume. If I was listening to some pediatric dietitians talk about, they say, I think a little bit of maple syrup on roasted vegetables, if it gets the kids to eat them, is so much better than like, oh, no added sugars,
Right.
or think of that. What was the classic? The half a grapefruit, which is very
Yes.
bitter to some people. A teeny bit of sugar on there, run it under the broiler, might get you to eat like the whole grapefruit. So I
Yeah.
think it is, you know, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Know how to use these things.
I'll have to tell you, Carolyn, last night we were watching on YouTube this amazingly interesting show on 25 foods from the 1970s that have disappeared, but you should never forget. And as we were watching it, some of the dishes, the moms were saying, I put a little sugar, maple syrup in my vegetables so my kids would eat the vegetables. And as I watched it, I thought about these dietary guidelines because it was very, very protein and dairy heavy. And there were a lot of sneaky ways for kids to get their vegetables by including sweetening them up. And I thought, man, are we going back to the 70s? I think I'm going to have a 70s dinner party now. It was really interesting. I want to bring up, so we have the new food pyramid brought up. I just want to, there's one at the end called Former, just so everybody can see the difference. Pop that one up.
Yeah.
There.
Okay. So what we got going on here, let's see what's the same, what's not the same. And, by the way, that other food pyramid, the upside down one, it just like it's going to fall down. It seems to me it's an architectural problem. But anyway, I think this is where some of the criticism has come. So you see, it says 40% of your diet should be breads, pasta, cereals. And of course, we champion the whole grain ones. Remember, I said make half your grains whole. Really, when you look at human nutrition needs with the macros, we do need carbohydrates for energy. Our brains need it. Our bodies need it. And as I mentioned, carbohydrates are important for us to for protein to enter our bodies to do its good work. So again, say it's 40% and 35% fruits and vegetables, 20% meats, fish, milk, and eggs. And then at the top, it said 5%. This is your fats, your oils, your sugars, and sweets. I think what's really changed is we know now the role that healthy fats play in everything from our skin to our brains, obviously our cardiovascular system. So I think we're nuanced. We nuanced quality. We went, and then we went to, and I'll just hold it up here, the My Plate.
Yes.
Which, people are comparing the new pyramid to the old, but in the middle, we had the My Plate.
Yes, which is great.
People do in this, okay, forget this for a second, but it shows you fruits and vegetables is half here. That's a lot. And then grains here. And then of course the protein. Protein is not half of your diet. And then a dairy over here. But I think what's important is a lot of people either don't want to consume dairy or they feel like they can't tolerate it. So we have to give them guidance on plant-based proteins. That's another thing which I felt was not championed enough in the new dietary guidelines for Americans. Your beans, your lentils, your other pulses. For vegans, for vegetarians, yes, of course, they can eat a completely healthful diet, and they don't need the porterhouse steak.
We eat a lot of beans here because I tend to not eat meat. I eat a lot of chicken, white meat, chicken, and fish. But we eat a lot of beans. That's one of our biggest source of proteins.
Go back. Can you go back to the new dietary?
Yeah, let's put the new one up again. Yeah,
I want to point out something, and I'd love for everybody to chime in here just in their own worlds, because in this graphic, I still don't know.
Juan, can you put the new one up again, the one to the far left?
I still don't know, and you'll see it kind of to the middle, y'all. It's in a bowl, and
I don't think
anyway, there is a bowl of white stuff with red stuff on top of it. I know, are in New Orleans right now, and anyway, a friend of mine said, "Is that oatmeal with blueberries on top? Is that what is that?" And so the graphic has gotten a lot of criticism too, like bad clip art. But there was actually an individual artist who created this. Gotta love them. And
you know what I want to put up? So the one that is in the middle, Juan, our engineer is Juan, by the way, I'm talking to him. We have one in the middle called the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
I'm hoping he will put that up because everybody always says that that's the healthiest diet. Okay. So this is the Mediterranean diet pyramid, which many medical experts and nutritionists say this is one of the healthiest diets. It looks a lot like the former.
I believe the Mediterranean diet pyramid was introduced during that era. Okay.
Yeah.
In the pyramid era, if you will. And you'll see also, if you look at the bottom, which means you're eating more of these things, and it is your whole grains, breads, they have beans in there, and beans is more of a protein-ish thing now in our world. And nuts, of course, have protein too. Well, don't get me wrong. All these carbohydrates foods contain fiber. They contain protein. There are protein in all these things. There's protein in fruits and vegetables, and there's certainly fiber in all of these things too. Anything from the plant kingdom, you're going to get fiber, unless it's all completely stripped away, like a white pasta. Then the other thing I see here, Melanie, it has drink water. There's not much talk about hydration in the dietary guidelines.
None.
We know how important that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at that. Of course, we are wine in moderation over here in the Mediterranean diet pyramid. So let's talk about, if you want to, alcohol in the new recommendations. What went away was amounts. Remember, we've been fine tuning this for a while. It was, 2 drinks a day for men, 1 drink a day for women based
Right.
on health risk. Obviously, men don't necessarily have the same health risk of breast cancer, and that was associated why women only got the 1, okay?
Mhm.
Or as my friend Mimi said, "Well, I only used 1 glass," okay? Um, but anyway, the limits, suggested limits, recommended limits have gone away in the new
Yeah.
dietary guidelines, and it just says consume less. Well, that could mean a whole bunch of different things depending on who you are.
Yeah, I know. I actually, one, as you know, coming from the wine world, everybody let a global exhale because there was a
Yeah.
lot of rumblings about no amount of alcohol is good for you. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
had everybody like gnashing their teeth and so many issues. And I'm happy to see that wine has been accepted. Or beverage alcohol, because it's not just wine, it's beverage, because it could be beer, it could be, spirits, but in moderation. However, as you said, and I concur, that word moderation can mean different things to different people based on your habits, your body weight, your tolerance level, if you are on any medications. As we age, I know as I have aged, I can tolerate wine really well, but my tolerance for hard alcohol is just not there right now. And particularly when it's combined with sugary juices. So you have to know your body type and understand what your limit is and accept that and then consume in moderation.
That's right. And I think, again, this is just one of my euphemisms, if you will.
Mhm.
People ask me, Carolyn, is it okay that I eat chocolate? Is it okay that I drink wine? Is it okay that I love cheese and crackers? Is it okay that I do love a salty chip? And I said, you know what? It depends on the company it keeps. If you're just drinking wine and having nothing for dinner, okay, not so good. If
Yeah.
you're having a lovely glass of wine with, your, chicken on the grill and you've got your vegetables and maybe you've got a beautiful salad and some other, like boiled potatoes with tarragon. Again, it's your body is going to assimilate it differently. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the company it keeps.
And I think that's so important because wine in Europe, as you know, because we go to Europe, like it's always served with food. People don't just sit and drink bottles of wine unless we're at a wine tasting.
No, they
But
sit and have an Aperol spritz.
yeah, they have a spritz or an aperitivo, which is something different to open the palate. But wine is considered like a condiment with your food. And a
Yeah.
lot of it's because nobody could drink water way back in the day because water was poisonous
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Europe. So wine was this, and alcohol was safer than water. And I do think it's important. They don't have up on the new dietary guidelines, which I'm going to see if we can, if we can take the Mediterranean one down and put up the new one. They don't have anything about water. They don't have anything actually anywhere in the pyramid about liquid.
No, only thing you can drink on this would be the olive oil. But, another thing that got villainized in a way, or is low calorie sweeteners. Now they're telling us, really limiting, the amount of added sugars. We went down a little
Mhm.
bit more from before, and we could talk about that in a second. But then they say, and also to minimize non-nutritive or low-calorie sweeteners, all those things we all know, in the pink
Mm.
packet, the green packet, the blue packet, the yellow packet.
Yeah.
And I just also the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, um, the statement that they have is the guidelines emphasize moderation, even though
Mhm.
evidence to date indicates they're generally considered safe within acceptable intake limits. Okay.
Right.
So if you do like your Splendas, your NutraSweet, your the green one, which is all the different ones,
Yeah.
that claims to be more natural. Why am I blanking on the name of stevia?
Oh, stevia.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one. Yeah.
So
Yellow.
my caution is people say, Carolyn, are they safe? Are they safe to consume? And I say, yeah, they're safe to consume and acceptable intake limits. But I saw a gal at a coffee shop last week, actually, and she put like 6 packages
Mm.
of the yellow one in
Oof.
her coffee. And I thought, you know what? Maybe not harming her health. And she is not getting the extra calories. But what is it doing to our taste buds? So that
Yeah.
if you get used to that super sweet thing, which we're criticized all over the world for wanting things too sweet, what
Mhm.
happens when she bites into a Granny Smith apple? It's gonna be way, way too tart for her. So,
Mhm.
yes, you can train your taste buds to enjoy, because guess what? There are other flavors in the world besides
Yeah.
sugar and salt.
And I'm a big umami. I like that fullness feeling and everything, and it's hard. As you know, we moved to New Orleans. It is all about sugar and sodium and fat here, and of course, David and I both now have cholesterol, blood pressure issues, and we're on medication. So we're trying to address that, which is very difficult, particularly during king cake
And,
season.
but to champion New Orleans and to champion the state of Louisiana,
Mhm,
some of the top researchers in health and nutrition
mhm.
at Oxford Clinic, at Pennington, in Baton Rouge have done
Yeah.
some of the most important research on heart health and diet and
Yes.
on obesity and weight management.
And
So
and Tulane has the culinary medicine program where they're training physicians about the integration of nutrition and medical treatment. And Oxford Clinic has the Eat Fit program, which champion all restaurants, including Commander's Palace, that have the Eat Fit options. There's even an Eat Fit king cake at my local grocery store. But at the end of the day, uh, people can read the guidelines, they can look at the pictures, they can watch the TikTok, they can do all that, but they have to make the changes themselves. And I still see grocery carts filled with junk food.
well, let's identify junk food again and talk about ultra
Yeah.
processed foods. I mean, even that is very poorly defined, I think, because end
Yeah.
of the day, they said in the new guidelines and the information, it said to minimize processed foods. Okay, I
Mhm.
get that. But to me, what's wrong with an ultra processed food? I not the P word, the processed word. It's what's in it. Which is there too much salt? Is there
Sodium.
too much added sugars? And is
Mhm.
there too much saturated fat? Those are the three things I look for.
The
Not
SSS.
yet, not necessarily. Oh, there's chemicals in here that are ruining my
Mhm.
life. No, it's those three things. Okay.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, it also said reduce packaged foods. No, no, this is not good advice.
Mm-mm.
When you go into the supermarkets now, it's like Great Wall of China, the Great Wall of bag salads. I mean, there's never been more diversity in the whole
Yeah.
convenience and produce, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
And just because it comes in a package, folks, don't think, oh, I'm not supposed to have packaged foods. I got to go get the lettuce over there. I got to go
Yeah.
get the tomatoes over there. I got to go get the carrots. It actually, I think, brings the cost down. You've got less food waste.
Yeah.
And a package also protects the nutrients, food safety,
Mhm.
and end of the day, the flavors. Um, and so I think that it's smart packaging. It's not over packaging. It's smart
Right.
packaging to protect our foods and the nutrients and the flavors, reducing food waste. So I just wanted to give a little shout out. It's about smart packaging, not
Yeah.
reducing packaging.
I agree. We buy packaged salads all the time. In fact, last night we went to the grocery store because David made black eyed peas, which I insisted had to have greens with them. And the greens were the loose greens were so sad and expensive for the sadness because we're just at that dull time with vegetables. And the packaged ones look nice. So we bought packaged. And for many people, again, economy is key. A lot of people just buy what they can afford. So if we can make these wonderful packaged foods healthy, in terms of lowering the SSS and affordable, that makes a big difference because I don't want to ever see people forego good nutrition because they can't afford it.
And it's a problem. I mean,
It's
when
a
you
big
look at,
problem.
like, the sticker shock, we've all been, like, let's say,
Yeah.
"Oh, use more olive oil." Okay, it's like, can be very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And so at home, make sure when you do spend, I noticed at Publix here, they had a BOGO going on, for the olive oil, which I thought was helpful, and I don't work for them, but it's nice when the supermarkets do see what people want and help, lower the prices. And I think we're going to see in 2026
Mhm.
many of these grocers, uh, stepping up, helping out, and
Yeah.
trying to help people find what's in season, what did they
Yeah.
get a whole bumper crop of so they could lower the price,
Mhm.
get to know your grocer, and, know how to store food. So back to
Yeah.
your olive oils, you don't wanna keep it next to the stove, it's gonna go rancid, that kind of a thing. And don't and you can I would I don't know, I will use the canola oil to do certain things and finish it with
I
olive oil
do.
for the
Yeah.
flavor.
I do that.
Um, And so it all gets back to home economics
Yeah.
and home ec, we always cared about. And on my podcast, Watch What You Eat with Carolyn O'Neil, we're
Mhm.
watching the food trends like you and I are doing right now, Melanie. But I also tell people what to watch out for to
Mhm.
protect their bodies
Yeah.
and their budget.
Yeah. And
And
budget's key. I have a tip. I'm a senior citizen now, so I know all the senior citizen days at the grocery stores, and I go in, I'll go, I want my 5%, but it adds up. Join, if you really get to know your local stores and join their Facebook groups or their online clubs, because they'll issue coupons, or get the app. Because you can shop their comparison apps that you can shop and see where. I mean, we go to 4 different grocery stores because David's such an avid bargain guy, and he's very specific about what he'll buy where. Get to know your stores, join their clubs or we're big Costco people. Join the clubs, get on the apps, get on the social media, and you will find deals and learn where you have those discount days and senior citizen specials.
And one of the podcasts I really enjoyed doing past year was on home canning and home food preservation. So let's say there is a bumper crop of zucchini or peaches or whatever. How do you freeze them? If you
Right.
want to learn about canning, how do you do it properly? Obviously, you have to do it properly. So I think, again, wouldn't it be fun? I mean, let's say there's a bumper crop of whatever it is, and just getting the kids in the kitchen. We're going to freeze the peas, freeze the
Yeah.
peas. And the
Freeze the
next thing the
peas.
kids are like, "Oh, can we have peas?" Because all of a sudden they became part of the project. I may be a little naive in painting that picture, but I think that young parents today are really challenged. They have so many
Yeah.
stresses on them.
Yeah.
Everything from like, what do we do about the vaccines, to what do we do about school, to what do we do about safety, getting my kids to and from where they need to
Right.
go. And then to add this, like no added sugars, underage 10.
In the scheme of things, no added sugars is nothing compared to will my kid get shot at school,
Yeah.
It's
And
like
I think that we as registered dietitians, certainly as foodies, as you are, Melanie, and a great communicator, people just say, tell me what to eat and why. And also how, and the goal is to be happy and healthy.
right.
When I see some of these, and maybe they are happy doing this, but some of these muscle building guys they're just eating protein, like the manosphere, which is a thing right now about like, oh, I'm only eating protein. I'm like, I would be so sad. I would be so sad. And
Mhm.
it's and learning to cook. Learning to cook
Yeah.
has always been one of the secret weapons
Mhm.
of and when you learn how to cook, you also know how to order better in a restaurant because you know what they're going through
Yeah.
in the kitchen.
Well, I gotta tell you, and then my favorite go-to economy, fabulous, use everything cooking person will always be Jacques Pepin. He
Oh,
focuses on home cooking and economy cooking, and he actually had us eating chicken skins, okay? He made chicken skins look amazing, and turned them into, like, the potato chip, but if you've not seen the Jacques Pepin videos, God bless him, he's 90, you were at his birthday party at the 90th. They are great videos to learn simple, economical, and nutritious home cooking.
yes, and his right behind me, these are all cookbooks, and I think I have so many of Jacques, and
Yeah,
end of the day,
amazing.
they're easy to follow, and even my son Jack, who is in his 30s, said, "Mom, my favorite cooking show," and I thought he was gonna mention something on TikTok. He says, "No,
Jacques
Jacques
Pepin.
Pepin. I watch him on YouTube, and
Mhm.
I made coq au vin the other night, and I didn't know that the bones of the chicken were adding the flavor, so we didn't have to add as much, like, whatever, salt or, that kind of a thing." It's really just good cooking, good
Really great cooking, and it's available widely on all his channels and YouTube, and if you make a small donation to his foundation, you get more videos, and he's a great guy.
and
Carolyn O'Neil, we gotta wrap up. I've loved talking to you. First of all, I haven't seen you, and we gotta see each other in person sometime. Come to New Orleans.
can I give you one quote from Julia
Yes.
Child to wrap up?
Oh,
Because you
of
asked me to
course.
wrap up. Okay, this is from the great Julia Child. We talked about Jacques, so it reminded me. She says, here's what I think about nutrition. She says, everything in moderation, even excess, because every once in a while you got to just go for it.
God bless Julia. God bless Julia. We maybe have more of that spirit in our life, the Jacques and Julias and the Carolyn O'Neils in our life. Carolyn, I love you. I love seeing you.
Thank
Happy
you,
birthday,
Melanie.
Jessie, to your mom. Happy
Oh,
heavenly
thank you.
birthday. She's so sweet. I've loved it. How can people find and follow you?
Well, you just go to Watch What You Eat with Carolyn O'Neil. You find that it's on the Spoon podcast network, and it's everywhere like Spotify and all those different places. I'm CarolynO'Neil.com. You can find it there if you want. And Melanie, I got to have you on the podcast.
I'd love it. I would love it. Big honor. All right. Signing out. And as usual, everyone, I hope you love the show. You have the choice in life to live the way you want. Always choose fearless and fabulous, and always choose life on your terms. Thanks for joining me, and follow me at Melanie Fabulous. Love you, Carolyn.
Love
Goodbye
you too,
to
Mel.
everybody. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year and happy eating.
Woo!